everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Thank you. I will be reading from an epic poem, an excerpt called From the Children of Children Keep Coming by Russell Goings. And I read this excerpt on behalf of the ancestors, the community, and all the beautiful black women I know. I am a black woman. In the womb I hold the gift of tomorrow. Sons and daughters, brothers and sisters, I am a black woman who carries the seeds. I am a black woman who digs, prunes, plants, harvests. I am a black woman who comes early and stays late. I am a black woman who won't allow the Klan to seal my fate. I am a black woman who walks unafraid across Dixieland. The sticks and stones I carry make a home, something, I say something I own. I am a black woman who sings lullabies, who refuses to say goodbye, who looks to the sky, who asks, Lord, Lord, why? Will the message, your message, come by and by? Will you stand with me against the Klan? Will your light surround my swelling belly with delight? Will you ride the tide with me? Together, will we set the Klan aside? I am a black woman of courage, of faith. I turn page after page. I am always engaged. Yes, I am a black woman. I lead, stand, share, birth. My song, a southern song, I sing while watching ducks and frogs glide on silver spines of cresting rivers. Every day I sing. Dig no more graves for the Klan's misdeeds. Dig no more in the red clay of Georgia. Run no more from the murdering band. Run no more from the Klan. I run with the men of the Massachusetts 54th. I run with John Brown, Nat Turner, Douglas, Du Bois. I run with Booker T, with Buddy Boy, Black Shiny Tiny. I run with C.C. Ryder. I run with the Underground Railroad. I am a black woman who will no longer be chained to grief, who will fire no more dirges. I am a black woman who stirs, sings, and rings bells, freedom's bell, liberty's bell, democracy's bell. I drink long, I drink deep, I drink until I'm satisfied. I am a rivulet flowing to greater rivers. I run through towns, cities, and hamlets. I am a black woman who plays music for the silent. I tend to the earth, I declare for you, you, and you. I ford troubled water. I will not go aground. I will not be turned around. This ground, this blood-soaked ground, is our ground. I'll never surrender it to the Klan. I am a black woman, and I stand with my man. Thank you.
And I am a student here at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. I am a junior studying psychology and sociology, and I am also a traveling poet. So I go across the nation doing poetry and spoken word. Today, I'm going to be performing one of my first poems I've ever written. As a minority, I've always wanted to change the world and impact it in some sort of way. And one of the persons that kept coming up in my mind was Martin Luther King. And so this is a poem about Martin Luther King. He sits on his throne like the Lincoln Memorial, next to Malcolm X and Gandhi by his eyes, observes the sovereign children through heaven's transparent floors and watches them, yes, he watches them, find timeless time machines and textbooks and tic-tac travel back to the time when God and the devil used to play chess with the civil rights movement. Back to the time when every colored newborn was born with the umbilical cord strapped around their neck, foreshadowing their deaths with their births. Back to the time when KKK was another way of saying 666. 6 makes you a bit sick, doesn't it? But now back to the present, where our only real presence is the pigment of our president, but I really can't feel his presence over the loud gunshots I hear every second. See, in this hood, it ain't no heaven, but my boys still find paradise in a pair of dice, because they can't realize with their real eyes the real lies the media drugs them with, so they get high off of the boom and the bang. It's no wonder why I haven't heard freedom ring in a while, but I do hear Dr. King weeping. See, at times, when he's alone in the celestial kingdom, he finds his eyes giving birth to waterfalls every time they witness police brutality, drawing blue and purple bruises on colored skin in the alleyways of Los Angeles. Or finding the helpless look of lost hope on a little girl's face when both of her innocent parents are arrested for being immigrants in Arizona. See, after 39 years, his back is still not used to the lashes of discrimination, but who could blame him? See, his slave ancestors who whooped so hard back in slave days, the pain had traveled through generations. So he was born inheriting back pain while being backhanded by reality, which made him backtrack to him black hands, those back doors to underground state to follow. If there's anything I've learned from Dr. King is that sometimes being obedient to God means being disobedient to society. So untie the knots in your throat and stop lynching your words. Realize that the pigment on your skin speaks volumes. You are a walking orchestra. So let your melodious mind play music on the keynotes of your teeth into your mouth. Sings old spirituals. Let the violin strings in your eyelashes create symphonies. Every time you blink, you are musically beautiful. Born with thick skins to block the sticks and stones that are thrown at you. See, Dr. King sits on his throne, waiting the day he has to put glasses on and squint a little harder to see segregation line here on earth. And we are his sovereign children with duties here on earth to make sure this dream truly comes true, but more importantly, above all else, we are all kings.
Sharing our history orally, especially with the younger generations. So today I hope to reinforce that. I'll be reading the Nobel Lecture by author Toni Morrison. Once upon a time, there was an old woman, blind but wise, or was it an old man, a guru perhaps, or a griot soothing restless children? I've heard this story, or one exactly like it, in the lore of several cultures. Once upon a time, there was an old woman, blind, wise. In the version I know, the woman is the daughter of slaves, Black American, and lives alone in a small house outside of town. Her reputation for wisdom is without peer and without question. Among her people, she is both the law and its transgression. The honor she is paid and the awe in which she is held reach beyond her neighborhood to places far away, to the city where the intelligence of rural prophets is a source of much amusement. One day, the woman is visited by some young people who seem to be bent on disproving her clairvoyance and showing her up for the fraud they believe she is. Their plan is simple. They enter her house and ask the one question, the answer to which rides solely on her difference from them, her blindness. They stand before her, and one of them says, "Old woman, I hold in my hand a bird. Tell me whether it is living or dead." She does not answer, and the question is repeated. Is the bird I'm holding dead or alive? Still, she doesn't answer. She is blind and cannot see her visitors, let alone what is in their hands. She does not know their color, gender, or homeland. She only knows their motive. The old woman's silence is so long, the young people have trouble holding their laughter. Finally, she speaks, and her voice is soft but stern. I don't know, she says. I don't know whether the bird you are holding is dead or alive, but what I do know is that it is in your hands. It is in your hands. Her answer can be taken to mean, if it is dead, you have either found it that way or you have killed it. If it is alive, you can still kill it. Whether it is to stay alive, it is your decision. Whatever the case, it is your responsibility. She is convinced that when language dies out of carelessness, disuse, indifference, and absence of esteem, or killed by fire, not only she herself, but all users and makers are accountable for its demise. In our country, children have bitten their tongues off and used bullets instead to iterate the voice of speechlessness, of disabled and disabling language, of language adults have abandoned altogether as a device for grappling with meaning, providing guidance, or expressing love. But she knows tongue suicide is not only the choice of children, it is common among the infantile heads of state and power merchants whose evacuated language leaves them with no access to what is left of their human instincts, where they speak only to those who obey, or in order to force obedience. Oppressive language does more than represent violence. It is violence. Does more than represent the limits of knowledge. It limits knowledge. Whether it is obscuring state language or the false language of mindless media, whether it is the proud but calcified language of the academy or the commodity-driven language of science, whether it is the malign language of law without ethics or law designed for the estrangement of minorities, hiding its racist plunder in its literary cheek, it must be rejected, altered, and exposed. We die. That may be the meaning of life, but we do language. That may be the measure of our lives. You, old woman, blessed with blindness, can speak the language that tells us what only language can. How to see without pictures. Language alone protects us from the scariness of things with no names. Language alone is meditation. Thank you.
We wear the mask. I had a mask, but it broke. We wear the mask that grins and lies. It hides our cheeks and shades our eyes. This debt we pay to human guile. With torn and bleeding hearts we smile and mount with myriad subtleties. Why would the world be overwise in counting all our tears and sighs? Nay, let them only see us while we wear the mask. We smile, but oh, great Christ, our cries to thee from tortured souls arise. We sing, but oh, the clay is vile beneath our feet and long the mile. But let the world dream otherwise. We wear the mask. By Paul Laurence Dunbar.
Next, I'd like to bring to the stage our youth ambassador for the evening. He's a very special young man. He'll be reading for us today. Mr. Robert Anthony Nash, please come to the stage.
Today is Invictus. Invictus by William Ernest Henley. Out of the night that covers me, black is the pit from pole to pole. I think whatever gods may be, for my unconquerable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have never winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeonings of chance, my head is bloody but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears, looms but the horror of the shade, and yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how strait the gate, how charged with punishments the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. Thank you.
Miss Jennifer Evans, who will sing for us. Praise God, everybody. Before I sing, I do want to tell you a little story, and it's very short. I had the pleasure and the honor of going to South Africa last summer. And I tell you, when they say that when we go, it feels like you're home, it is so true. It is so true. And we went, I was going on a missionary trip, and I was there to sing. And we were there also for an orphanage in Mopani. We stayed in Pretoria and went to Johannesburg. I'm shaking because I'm just in awe of everything that happened when we were there. But just to let you know, one of the things, and just to tell you how awesome God is, it's not about me, but how awesome He is. We were trying to build a building, and we were in conflict with the land, with some of the people who were in a tribe around the land that has been purchased, and so they had come to the table to meet, and they had met all morning long, and they could not agree on anything. And so when we came out there, the lady who I went to South Africa with asked me to sing, and I was terrified because they had the chief of the tribes there, and there was a language barrier, but they had people there to interpret what we were saying. And so I said, okay, I'll sing, but Lord, if they don't know, and I'm speaking English, how will they know what song I'm singing? And so I said, okay, Lord, I said, Holy Spirit, you take over. Let me decrease, Lord, you increase. And I open my mouth and I close my eyes. And this is the song God gave me. Why should I feel discouraged? And why should the shadows come? Why should my heart feel lonely and long for heaven and home? When Jesus is my portion, a constant friend.
watches me. I sing because I'm happy. I sing because I'm free. His eyes on the sparrow, and I know he watches me.
I don't know what happened in the midst of me singing, but they went back to the table and they agreed on things that they had been fighting over for over a year. I just wanted to tell you that story, not to glorify me, but just to let you know how good my God is.
Miss Maria.
Good evening. My name is Maria de Guzman, and I'm going to be reading chapter 14, which is short, from Walter Mosley's Life Out of Context, and then there's a long subtitle to it, which should also be read. And the subtitle is, which includes a proposal for the non-violent takeover of the House of Representatives. And this is what he says. And these are from a collection of essays that he seems to have written, for the most part, after midnight. So they really are his night thoughts. One tool that is greatly undervalued in the realm of literature, and therefore the rest of culture, is science fiction. This form of fiction has many different ways of pulling us out of our everyday mindsets and putting us into contemplative modes. For instance, a book of this sort might move your consciousness 50 years into the future, or 100 years back. From that point of view, we can look back or forward at ourselves with the imposed objectivity of a removed narrator. This displaced, quasi-objective point of view allows for a dialogue to occur within the mind of the reader. The dialogue is between two voices, both of which belong to the reader. One voice is the imagined innocent in the distant time, while the other is the reader defending our time, the present. A question is asked from the ether. How does a person in your era spend their time? Well, they wake up early and go to work, the present-day voice responds. And do they enjoy their labors? Sometimes, but not usually. Work has an alienating effect on most people, both in the economic and the emotional senses of that term. But they are very advanced technologically, the temporarily removed voice says. How much of their lives are spent at these alienated jobs? Well, if you take away eating, preening, sleeping, commuting, self-medicated states, and social responsibilities, you reply, then the average worker has about 6% of his or her daily life for personal pursuits. That plus 2 weeks vacation, when they most often get sick. And the other voice goes on. Well, why do people allow themselves to suffer such inadequate existences? And the other one replies, it's the only way you can survive in the modern world, you reply, but in the back of your mind, you wonder why. Most people only make enough money to pay their bills. If they stopped working, they'd starve. And the next voice says, but they have enough disposable income to wage wars and to build giant edifices. They have enough money for wasteful gas-burning automobiles, the removed voice challenges. They can make clothes and machines that would last a lifetime, but they do not. They could all share in the absolute profit of their society, and then there would be enough for all. And you reply, but that's against human nature. Humans are naturally lazy and shiftless. If one man could share in another's labor, he would become a malingerer, and then nothing would get done. And the other voice says, do people in your era really have such a low estimation of human nature? And the other voice says, it is in fact the current day, he replies. It has always been so. It is a fact. And the other voice says, but didn't cavemen and early human societies have a kind of partial socialism? And you say, they are primitives, or they were primitives, and the irony becomes almost apparent to you. The science fiction story is almost always a criticism of the lives we're living today. Once we can imagine a different world, or technology, then we see ourselves in a new light. We're able to question the context of our lives that have hitherto seemed absolute. Creating this kind of fiction is easier than it seems. You don't have to be a writer. All you have to do is think about it. Ask a question. If everyone had all they needed, how would the world look? Then answer it. There are a million such questions, and for each one, there are myriad answers. Once you begin to think outside of the system that defines you, gives your life its context, or lack of one, you will be able to articulate the questions that will lead to a deeper understanding of our place in the world. If we could create in our minds a wholly different world, and then imagine how we would live in that world, then we could see the flaws in the way that we live today. That might not change our lives in the physical sense, but it would at least open our minds enough to be able to accept arguments outside of the ones given by our so-called experts, professional politicians, laws, and lawmakers. And if we allowed ourselves to speculate on the two words, what if, we would be committing an act of rebellion that even the FBI and the CIA, backed up by the Patriot Act, would be powerless to counteract. Walter Mosley, Life Out of Context.
Slaves, the rise, fall, and redemption of the black athlete. Why are today's athletes so lost? The answer lies mainly in the succession of devastating spiritual losses black athletes have sustained since they began participating in integrated sports. The most significant of these has been the loss of mission, a mission informed by a sense of connection to the larger African American community and a sense of responsibility to the legacy of struggle that made possible this generation's phenomenal material success. But today, when so many black athletes have little or no sense of who or what came before, there is no sense of mission, no sense of the athlete as part of a larger community, as a foot soldier in a larger struggle. Young athletes, and many older ones, have dropped the thread that joins them to that struggle. They often have little or no understanding that they are part of a long and rich tradition. Black athletes attend some of the nation's most prestigious universities, but many are largely unaware of the depth and significance of their athletic roots. Many of their coaches aren't familiar with the history either. If they are, many of them fail to encourage athletes to explore their roots, lest they become distracted from the task at hand, shooting, jumping, running, fast and hard. If anyone should know the value of history, athletes should. They spend most of their time studying the past. Athletes watch game film incessantly. No responsible coach would think of sending a team into battle without having had his or her team spend hours studying game film. Film allows the viewer to study an opponent's trends and to assess strengths, weaknesses, and tendencies in order to devise strategies for the future. Film provides a means of studying the past to prepare for the future. Coaches do not, as a rule, demand that their black athletes study their historical past, and this has created a vacuum. The magnitude of the vacuum was articulated a few years ago by a young girl at Joan of Arc Elementary School in New York, since renamed, who asked me, "Who was the first white player to integrate the NBA?" Black athletes of an earlier era were forced by upbringing and circumstance to see themselves as part of a national community. They grew up at a time when the black community could still be said to be more or less united in common cause, a cause that transcended class, education level, and other secondary social categories. For hundreds of years, athletes as diverse as Jack Johnson, Jackie Robinson, Joe Louis, Wilma Rudolph, and Althea Gibson were part of that larger community, a community linked by a common struggle for human rights in the world's greatest democracy. The goals of that community were clear: to attain power. The nature of that power evolved over time. In the days of chattel slavery, power meant literal freedom, as in the case of Tom Molyneux, a former slave who freed himself to become a champion boxer in England. Ignorance of the past makes it difficult for black athletes today to unite and confront the issues of the present. This contemporary tribe with access to unprecedented wealth is lost precisely because it has failed to complete what New York Sun editor Charles Dana described as the black athletes' rise against white supremacy. On the contrary, African American athletes, blinded by a lack of history at what preceded them, have played a major role in helping maintain an unfair, corrupt, destructive system.
My name is Taryn Cherry. I am a senior in the Exercise and Sports Science Department, and I will be reading a short poem entitled My Pledge of Allegiance to Me by Letitia Hodge. There is more to me than the human eye can see. I am a woman of purpose and destiny. A perfect design, I am special and unique. I won't be identified by the parts that make up my physique. My beauty is not defined by my skin or my hair. And my soul has more value from the clothes that I wear. I am not a symbol of pleasure or sex appeal. I have the natural ability to comfort and the power to heal. When God made me, he created a gem because he fashioned me in the likeness of him. I refuse to do anything that will put God to shame. I deserve to be treated with reverence and called by my name. I can't be purchased or sold at any price because I've already been bought and paid by, the precious blood of Christ. Thank you.
A deep stare, a gentle laugh, the smile that says, I am all woman. I know the response that I cause as I sway my hips from side to side, as I laugh fully and smile with a hint of teasing. I am today what I wished for yesterday. Strong, delicate, genuine,
unique and soulful, swaying to the beat of my own drum. Could it be the new style that graces my face, or the ways that my clothes silhouette my waist? Is it the gentle laughter or teasing sway that awards me anything I desire today? Have I infiltrated your soul and whispered tenderly to your being, leaving traces of my essence, causing disbelief in what you are feeling? Lingering images of the woman I display capture your attention in the most reflective way. From the tips of the toes, up the arch of my cleft, through the grace of my hands, within the sexy sound of my laugh. From the angle of my sway and the joy in my being, I am all woman. Have faith in what you are seeing. I am Sister Sway on this and every day. I'd now like to introduce our entertainment for this portion, and our entertainment is Victory and Praise, and they will grace us with the dance.